Nice. Detect Forum. This is Public Health and Safety, Tuesday, June 6th. Thanks for joining us. Going to go through a consent agenda here, if possible. I don't know, yeah, thank you. Go through a consent agenda here, and you let me know if anything needs to be pulled off. All right. RS 2023-2187, Evan Stiles, Allen, and others urges the Mayor's Office and Metro Health Department, Metro Homeless Impact Division, and Metro Social Services to evaluate housing pods purchased with COVID-19 epidemiology. Excuse me, that's not on consent because that's going to be deferred to me. I'm moving on to RS. RS 2023-2193, Roten and Syracuse. Actually, that one's not going to be on consent either. All right, we're on a roll here. On to RS 2023-2195, Roten, Syracuse, Hurt, and others. Approves a grant from the Tennessee Department of Mental Health and Substance Abuse Services to the Davidson County General Sessions Court to provide the Tennessee Mental Health Court program to include intensive court supervision, mental health treatment services, drug testing, and substance abuse treatment services as an alternative to incarceration. Over to RS 2023-2203. Syracuse and Hancock approved an agreement between the Tennessee Wildlife Resources Agency and the Metropolitan Government of Nashville and Davidson County by and through the Metropolitan Nashville Police Department to issue boating law enforcement commissions to selected members of the MNPD. RS 2023-2204, Roten, Syracuse, Hurt, and Saguaro accepts a grant from the Tennessee Department of Finance and Administration to the Metropolitan Government acting by and through the Office of Family Safety to fund staffing positions to help manage the multidisciplinary needs of its clients. RS 2023-2205. Accepts a stop fatality review grant from the Tennessee Department of Finance and Administration to the Metropolitan Government acting by and through the Office of Family Safety to promote a coordinated multidisciplinary approach to improving the criminal justice system's response to sexual assault, domestic violence, dating violence, and stalking crime. RS 2023-2206, Porterfield, Roten, Syracuse, and others. Approves the grant contract issued between the Metropolitan Government and Planned Parenthood of Tennessee and Northern Mississippi for funds appropriated pursuant to substitute resolution RS 2022-1734 for a total of $500,000 from the Metropolitan Government to recipient. RS 2023-2207, Roten, Syracuse, and Welsh approves a grant from the Tennessee Department of Health to the Metropolitan Board of Health to implement and coordinate activities and services related to HIV prevention, testing, diagnosis, treatment, and surveillance. RS 2023-2208, Roten, Syracuse, Hancock, and Bradford approves a grant from the Friends of Metro Animal Care and Control to the Metropolitan Board of Health to provide funding for emergency medical care for sheltered animals. RS 2023-2209, Roten, Syracuse, and Hurt approves the Health Start Initiative, eliminating racial ethnic disparities grants from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services to the Metropolitan Board of Health to provide a variety of services in reducing infant mortality for pregnant and parenting women. RS 2023-2210, Roten, Syracuse, Hurt, and others approves a grant from the Tennessee Department of Health and the Metropolitan Board of Health to provide breast and cervical cancer screening and diagnostic services to eligible individuals. RS 2023-2211, Roten, Syracuse, Hurt, and Welsh approves Amendments 1 and 2 to a COVID-19 health disparities among populations grant from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention to the Metropolitan Board of Health to address COVID-19 related health disparities and expand capacity and services to prevent and control infection or transmission among underserved populations. RS 2023-2212, Roten, Syracuse, Hancock, and others approves Amendment 4 to a grant from the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency to the Metropolitan Board of Health for the ongoing collection of data on ambient air concentrations of 2.5 for fine particulate matter in Nashville, Tennessee. RS 2023-2220, Roten, Syracuse, and Hurt approves a Project Safe Neighborhood grant from the Tennessee Department of Finance and Administration to the Metropolitan Nashville Police Department to reduce gun-related violence in Nashville by using data and network analysis, funding additional staff overtime, and purchasing added forensic equipment. RS 2023-2221, Roten, Syracuse, Hurt, and others approves a Victim of Crime Act grant from the Tennessee Department of Finance and Administration to the Metropolitan Nashville Police Department to fund additional staffing, enhance services, and serve more victims of crime. Our final resolution, RS on the consent agenda, RS 2023-2222, Roten, Syracuse, Hancock, and Hurt approves an application for a Community Policing Development Officer Recruitment Grant from the U.S. Department of Justice to the Metropolitan Police Department to increase the number of qualified applicants and retain current officers by creating a positive work environment that supports diversity and inclusivity. All right.
So we take 9 and 15?
Yes, sir. All right.
So which one?
So we will
9
move
and 15.
off consent. 9 and 15. All right, thank you, Councilman.
What about 12
So,
and 14? 12 and 14.
12 and 14, you got it, okay.
Do you have an extra agenda sheet?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. 12 and 14 will come up with consent. And Martin Johnson Evans. Okay, any others that need to come off consent? No? No? All right, can I get a motion to accept the consent agenda?
So moved.
All right, any other questions? Okay, all in favor of the consent agenda?
Aye.
Against? Non-voting? All right, consent agenda passes. So, on to the very first one, RS 2023-2187, Evan Stiles, Allen, and others urges the Mayor's Office, the Metropolitan Health Department, Metro Homeless Impact Division, and Metro Social Services to evaluate housing pods purchased with COVID-19 epidemiology and laboratory capacity grant funds and create an action plan for their use. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Councilman.
I need to move for a 2-meeting deferral, please.
There's been a motion for a
Second.
2-meeting deferral. Second. Any discussion? All in favor of 2-meeting deferral?
Aye.
Against? Voting? Thank you. We have recommended a deferral for 2 meetings. All right, thanks so much. Okay. RS 2023-2193, Road in Syracuse appropriates $96,000 from a certain account of the Community Safety Fund for grants to various nonprofit organizations for South Nashville community safety programs.
So moved. Second.
Okay. Councilman.
Thank you so very much, Chair. I was wondering if there were a list of the nonprofits in South Nashville that we'll be partnering with.
Hi.
Brianna?
Thank you for the questions. We are partnering this time, it's part of the same area focus on the Antioch Glencliff area. This time it's with the Somali community of Middle Tennessee and Friends of Millridge Park.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Yep.
Thank you, guys.
Any other questions, comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Against? Not voting? You recommend approval. Thank you. Okay, so let's see. Okay, so that leads us to RS 2023-2187, Roten, Benedict, Syracuse, and Hurt. Adopts a new pay plan for employees of the Metropolitan Departments of Police and Fire effective July 1, 2023. Motion?
So moved. Second.
All right. Any other questions? Otherwise, we're going to move approval and then defer with a referral back to this committee to the 20th to kind of keep it in line with budget and whatnot. So any other?
So moved.
Yeah.
Second.
Any other questions, concerns, issues? All right. So all in favor of moving this and then re-referring it back on 6/20? Is that correct, Margaret? Okay. Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Against? Not voting? All right. Refer. Okay. RS 2023-2198, Roten, Benedict, Syracuse, and Hurt adopts a new pay plan for employees of the Metropolitan Board of Health effective July 1, 2023. Second verse, same as the first.
So moved.
Second.
Moved for a move approval with a re-referral to this committee on June 20th. Okay. All in favor of that motion?
Aye.
Against? Not voting? Thank you. Then we had RS 2023-2206, Porterfield, Roten, Syracuse, and others. Approved the grant contract issued between the Metropolitan Government and Planned Parenthood of Tennessee and Northern Mississippi for funds appropriated pursuant to subsequent resolution RS 2022-1734 for a total of $500,000 from the Metropolitan Government to recipient. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Councilman?
I guess when we passed the bill originally, it was in the wake of the Dobbs decision, and I know there was a lot of passion and emotion that decision raised. But I'm not sure that we ought to be taking money from our health department, from our fire department, from other departments to fund this. I think Planned Parenthood has got lots of funding on its own right now. Hopefully some of the emotion has died down. And I can't vote for this as it is.
Any other comments, questions? Concerns? Yes, ma'am.
Yes, thank you so very much, Chair. Thank you for that explanation, and I completely understand your position. As a woman of childbearing age, the emotion has not died down, and it will never die down until this decision is reversed and until I have the same body autonomy that you have. The emotions will never die down. And with that, I'm going to ask my colleagues to please support. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
I appreciate my colleague, and I understand those emotions, and I understand that perspective. I looked at this strictly as a fiscal issue, and I do have an issue when this came up, taking money from our departments. And one of the pieces of my journey in investigating this issue is learning about Planned Parenthood, and what I saw was an extremely well-run organization and a very impressive outfit. And that's probably not the proper word or description, because they do run a very, I was very impressed with the executive director and what she had to say and the numbers and how they run their organization. So I felt like it was difficult for me to support giving money from our departments. $90,000 of this comes from the police department, which is going to cost them 2 FTEs to send money to such a well-run organization as Planned Parenthood. And I appreciate the work you do, and I appreciate how you run your organization. And for those reasons, I can't support this, but again, I appreciate you very much.
Yes, ma'am.
I wonder if we can hear from Planned Parenthood, since you're here, about the impact that this fiscal note will make for many women here in Tennessee.
Absolutely, and thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to speak. My name is Jessica McDuffie Massey. I'm the Director of Philanthropy for Planned Parenthood of Tennessee in North Mississippi, and I know many of you here in the room. What I will say is that we work, to your point, which I think are both very fair and very important, we work with many, many organizations, including the Metro Health Department, to make sure that women, LGBTQ plus populations, men, anyone truly is served. That the underserved populations of Metro Davidson and the greater surrounding Middle Tennessee area, that these health needs are being met. So in this moment, one of the things I will address is I know that post-Dobbs, there was a lot of passion, and councilperson, I feel that passion deeply every day still. This funding will be used is in no way related to abortion or travel expenses for abortion. So the funding that is occurring will be going directly into our community for safer sex supply kits, including condoms, including free LARCs and other contraceptions for underserved populations. It will be going directly into emergency contraception. It will be going into, quite frankly, things like menstrual products for teenagers in our community that do not have access. We work, again, with both nonprofit and Metro departments across the community to make sure that all people are receiving non-judgmental sexual and reproductive health care. And I will name that for Planned Parenthood, in light of the state legislation that has occurred this past year, it is more important than ever that we are making sure that we are able to be preventative with our services and that we are meeting the needs of our LGBTQ plus community right now with all the attacks on them. Are there any specific questions? I'm happy to provide numbers.
That was great. That satisfies me. I don't know, someone else might want numbers, but the main point that I'm getting from the takeaway from what you just said is this is a part of public health and safety. And while we appreciate our police department, our fire department, all of our public safety workers, and we support them in that way, I think this is also a program that we should support like we do our other public safety and public health programs. And for that reason, I'll be voting in support of this. So thank you.
Yeah, and let me be clear, I have nothing against Planned Parenthood. In fact, I get a letter from you once in a while, because in the past, I've given, it's been a while. I don't
Come on down again.
Yes.
We're so-
The question is, my sense was that your fundraising probably was over the roof at the time, and I'm not sure that you need Metro money. Is this going to keep you from doing any of the things that you do if we did not give you $500,000?
Oh, yes, we need this money. I'm not saying that just because it's my job. I'm not going to stand here and not tell you that we had crisis donors in the post-Dobbs decision. But what I will stand here and tell you is that there's a reason those are called crisis donors. Because we have people who actually think that our doors have been shut because we no longer provide abortion care in this state. And what we have to do in this moment, and I'm not just talking about Planned Parenthood, but all our partners across the state, is we have to double down on prevention, because sex education just became crucial, and so did contraception of all choices for women and other people to be able to choose. So this will allow us to reach more people within the metro area, 100%. And I'll also name that it's not, to be really nuts and bolts about the money, it's not coming in this past fiscal year. It's going to come in the next fiscal year. So it's only if the way the grant is structured, we are reimbursed for what we spend. So if we don't spend $500,000, I'm going to spend $500,000. But if we didn't spend $500,000, then we would not be reimbursed for that. So we will be spending the money on preventive care in the coming year.
And how much is the health department's budget being cut for this? That also provides some of those same services? $60,000.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that explanation. I do think that this is a vital service that is being provided, and I do just want to reiterate that prevention is the best access that humans that can bear children in the state of Tennessee, which is now a forced birth state, prevention is the best access that we have. And Planned Parenthood has the ability to reach individuals that our health department, as great of a job that our health department does, not fully commend the health department for the things that they do and the resources that they provide, but Planned Parenthood is able to reach individuals that our health departments are not able to reach. So again, I ask you all for your support.
Any other comments or questions? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, those against? 2 against? All right. So you recommend approval, 6 in favor, 2 against. Anyone not voting? No, I guess that was everybody. Okay, thank you so much. Appreciate you being here very much.
Thank you so much for allowing me to speak.
Sure. RS 2023-2209, Roten, Syracuse, and Hurd approves the Healthy Start Initiative Eliminating Racial Ethnic Disparities grant from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services to the Metropolitan Board of Health to provide a variety of services reducing infant mortality for pregnant and parenting women. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Okay. And, forget, who asked for this one to be, yeah, I'm sorry. Vice Chair.
Thank
The floor is
you.
yours.
Thank you, Chair. I was just wondering if we could get a brief overview of the program and the services that will be provided. Very brief.
You may.
Thank you.
So that's better known here locally, John, is the Nashville Strong Babies, which works at 7 zip codes. They do prenatal care, post-birth care, prenatal care. They've seen 543 folks. They've got a lot of good stats to go with that, but it's based in the 7 zip codes where maternal health has been worst statistically for a while.
Thank you. I just wanted to make sure it was the same programs.
It was a lot for instance.
Thank you. I strongly support it. It's been a great program, so thank you, Chair.
Any other comments, questions on that? All in favor?
Aye.
Against? No voting? You recommend approval. Thank you. RS 2023-2211, Roten, Syracuse, Hurd, and Welsh approves amendments 1 and 2 to a COVID-19 health disparities among population grant from the Centers for Disease Control Prevention of the Metropolitan Board of Health to address COVID-19 related health disparities and expand capacity and services to prevent, control infection or transmission among underserved populations.
So moved.
Yes, Vice Chair.
If we can also get a really brief explanation of that program.
Tom?
So this is a no-cost extension for money that we did not spend previously. We're still using it on disparities work, less so on COVID work. For instance, we have taken vaccine clinics to sixth grade schools to try to give them the vaccination that they often don't have to start in seventh grade, and it causes a lot of confusion and angst and so forth in seventh grade. This will kick them out after a week if they don't have it. So we went to those places where we had the highest rates of non-compliance from the seventh graders, for instance.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. And Tom, do you want to reiterate the comments you made at the Budget and Finance yesterday about CDC loosening its grip a little bit?
Yeah, they've given us a lot more. With the end of the COVID emergency, they've given us a lot more discretion about how to use that.
It's not just COVID-19.
Right. Well, when we go to the clinics, we offer COVID shots just in case.
Absolutely. Any other comments, questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Against? Not voting? You recommend approval. Thank you. Over to RS 2023-2212, Roman Syracuse Hancock and others approves Amendment 4 to a grant from the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency to the Metropolitan Board of Health for the ongoing collection of data on ambient air concentrations of 2.5 for fine particulate matter in Nashville, Tennessee. Can I get a motion?
Move.
All right. And Councilmember, you're the one that's best for this one?
Yeah, it may not be related, but given that we're talking about the ambient air, I've wondered if you've noticed any difference since we stopped testing.
That's a good question. I don't know that, I haven't checked with John, John Fink, who runs that program, to see if we noticed any. It really has to do with heat. Ozone forms here in the summertime when it gets real hot. I don't think we had that bad a summer last year. It seemed like it was pretty good. It's 100 degrees out there now. I don't know how good it's going to be going forward. This one in particular it's not just about the stuff you can see, the ozone, the smog. The little bitty stuff that gets in your lungs can be very damaging, and so we monitor how much of that stuff is in the air. Is what this one particularly is for. That's a good question. I'll find out the answer.
I'm curious.
Thank you, Chair. Really quick question. This might be a clerical question. 2.5, should there be a measure behind that? Like 2.5, I don't know, grams or milligrams?
PM is that, and I can't remember what it stands for. It's like picometer or something.
Okay.
Little bitty thing.
I guess my question is, and maybe this is a question for legal, should PM be behind that? Should the measure be behind it?
I think that in
That's the way they.
the
okay.
legislation it is, just
In the summary, it's not. Okay, thank you. Just wanted to make
That's
sure.
the way they refer to it as well.
Thank you. That was your question.
Point of clarification, yes. 2.5 is a noun, right?
Right.
Any other questions, comments on that? All in favor?
Aye.
Against? Not voting? You recommend approval? Thank you so much. Okay. I do believe that is all of our resolutions. On to bills on second reading. BL 2023-1857, Councilmember Rosenberg, amends section 10.68.020 of the Metropolitan Code relative to fireworks. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Okay, Councilman, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Councilmember. First, if I could, I'd like to ask that we again put on Amendment 1. It's the same amendment from last week that changes the period for safe use of fireworks from July 3rd through 5th until 11 o'clock to instead only the 4th of July to 10:30 p.m.
So moved.
Any other discussions on Amendment 1? Yes?
Yeah, excuse me, will you say that again?
Instead of the original bill allows safe use of fireworks on July 3rd through 5th from until 11 p.m., this would instead say only on the 4th of July and only until 10:30 p.m. on the 4th of July.
And what's the reasoning behind it?
To reduce the period, since we're just doing this for the first time, for how long it would be allowed to be used.
Just for this stuff? Okay,
Yeah.
thanks.
Any other discussions, comments? All in favor of Amendment 1?
Aye.
Any against? Okay, we adopt Amendment 1. So, Councilman?
Okay, and then can I ask if Councilmember Poli wants to deal with Amendment 3?
That's fine. You want me to do that now?
You want to take 3 first?
Yes,
Or
and then
next,
I'll
rather?
explain the bill and Amendment 2.
Okay, all right, so on to Amendment 3. Councilman?
I'd like to
Actually, move approval of Amendment.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, very good, sorry. Floor is yours.
Simple, there is a section in it that deals with, got some small parcels in my district, and this deals with when you shoot the fireworks. There was a definition in the original bill as it exists now that's you'll make reasonable efforts to contain the fireworks and the debris, and I'm bifurcating those two, and you basically requires you to contain the fireworks and make reasonable efforts to contain them. Just a simple change, and, I had made sure the sponsor was given input on this, and I think you're supportive of this.
He's a co-sponsor. Any questions on Amendment 3? Questions? All in favor of Amendment 3?
Aye.
Against? Not voting? Adopt Amendment 3. All right, so back to Amendment 2. Councilman.
Thank you. Amendment 2 is not one that I love, but I wanted to make it available to the committee and the body. What it does is it sunsets this on July 30th of next year, June 30th of next year. So basically, if folks are uncomfortable with the bill for some reason, it would really be a bill that's in effect for one day. And then the council would need to re-up it by resolution if the next council, most likely, if the body were so inclined. So this makes it a one-shot deal, so to speak. That's Amendment 2. I don't know. I mean, I guess we can, but I don't know if the committee wants to vote on it or.
It's on the floor, so. Yeah.
Is it on the floor now?
Is it on the floor? So moved.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Yes.
Sorry. Procedural. Okay, Councilman Rep, yes.
I appreciate you doing your due diligence to make sure that all options are explored. I'm more so leaning towards what you're feeling. I don't know that it is necessary. If it is not successful, we'll have a new body in August and they can vote to end it at that time. I think that it may be putting the cart before the horse. Is that the way the phrase goes? Because if it goes great this year and we don't have any issues and now we've put a sunset on it, then we're going to have to re-look at it again next year. So I'd rather stop it if it doesn't work versus stopping it now when we don't know if it'll be successful or not.
Any other comments, questions on Amendment
I was kind of gonna
2?
ask the sponsor the same thing, like how you feel about having another council weigh in on your bill here, so.
I'm confident that it's going to go well, so I'm fine with it, but.
Anyone else?
So with that, would you like to withdraw?
I didn't make the motion to. I mean,
It's your amendment, so if, do you want to move it?
yeah, let's vote and see what.
Want to vote it? So,
Yeah, and we can,
So, all in favor of Amendment 2?
Aye.
All right. Can I get a hand?
Okay.
Hands. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right. Against? 1, 2, 3, 4.
That's fair.
Where's,
it is. It's going to have a very even-handed.
where's Vice Mayor? Yeah. I don't know. So, what does a tie mean in a committee?
It just means.
Recommendation.
It's just a recommendation of.
Yeah, it's just a
It's a
recommendation.
null recommendation.
Just you can't buy.
Okay. So now that we have the
So,
amendments.
I have a question on that.
So
So if you still
on-
can't buy fireworks, we're saying you can shoot them, but you can't buy them?
Yes.
So,
what
Back to the bill as amended,
I'm
right?
sorry.
You want to move, you're fine. Move
I'll move the bill as amended.
as amended, all right? Second?
Second?
Second.
Yeah, all right. Council,
Sorry about that.
You're fine, you're good.
Yeah, that, it kind of, is there something we can do in tandem to allow it to be sold as well?
I don't think there's going to be support for that. Everybody can go to the county line.
That can of worms?
I grew up in a dry county. I mean, I know I'm on the county line, but I'm just saying, anyway, okay.
So, if I'm sorry, can I?
Councilmember, sorry, go ahead.
Thank you. So all the bill does is say that under certain circumstances, it's okay for adults to shoot off personal use fireworks on their own property or with the approval and in the presence of a property owner on July 4th from noon until 10:30. I know police and fire can speak for themselves. On your desks in the council chamber is an email from the director of the Metro Nashville Department of Emergency Communications, our 911 center, who says in part, you correctly identified the impact of fireworks noise-related calls on and around 4th of July on dispatch operations. this holiday and New Year's Eve are the leaders in call volumes related to safety concerns and noise complaints associated with fireworks. This ordinance may assist in reducing the number of law-abiding citizens who use fireworks on holidays and may deter those who may consider using fireworks outside of the authorized hours. For enforcement or how violation of this ordinance would be enforced would be a question for Chief Jake's team. Thank you for considering my input in this legislative effort. Regards. That is in large part the goal, is to hopefully create some guardrails around the way it's used, kind of the way we did with the home business bill, creating some regulations so people who want to follow a law can have a law to follow, and acknowledging that it's not going to change behavior in a negative way, much as fears of home businesses popping up in every neighborhood proved unfounded. So the hope is that we can create those and also perhaps reduce some of the burden on our emergency services through 911 calls.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. We heard from Fire last meeting. They had concerns about it and weren't supportive. I would like to hear from MAPD, if we could, on how this might impact the police department, if it would really, because I'm of the belief that people are going to shoot off fireworks regardless. People are going to call 911 regardless. Is there a sense that this would be effective in minimizing anything for the police department?
So when we were asked, my response to Councilmember Rosenberg was that we would largely defer to the fire department with respect to the safety issue and whether or not that's advisable. But our response, particularly around the 4th of July, is we're triaging those calls. So you're not going to get an officer responding to most of those calls for service because, obviously they're lower priority unless there's somebody doing something particularly dangerous, right? So I don't know that it's going to reduce the number of calls because I think you're right. I think people are probably still going to shoot them. People are still going to call in. And there are instances where it's still not lawful, right? If you're doing it dangerously, you're doing it on somebody else's property, that sort of thing. So, I can't predict the future. I don't know what it would do to calls for service, but I suspect we're still going to get quite a few.
Thank you.
Yes, Councilmember. You next? Your hand went first.
Mine's very quick. Based on what I heard, really, in my discussions with you prior to this was you basically only respond when there's a dangerous situation when they're out there in the right of way. And one of the reasons for this amendment was if they're shooting when they're not containing the fireworks, it doesn't inhibit you from being able to do what I understand the times when you do respond, you can still do what you were going after before. Is that right?
Yeah, as I read it, there's still obviously limitations on the manner in which you shoot them,
Yes.
right? You have to be either on your property or with the owner's permission and containing the debris and that sort of thing. So I think, there are still things that we can enforce if we go to a scene and someone is not conducting themselves within the bounds of the ordinance or some other statute. Yes.
But realistically, what you were responding to before, you can still do that now, because I get what you're saying about, triaging this and not being able to respond to every call for fireworks.
Yeah, we were largely responding to people doing dangerous things with fireworks.
Exactly. Okay, thank you for that answer.
Kind of law enforcement 101 is that we rely upon community voluntarily obeying the law, and then the police get to take care of the things around the edges in the best scenario. And I do appreciate the sponsors' kind of pragmatism about this. People doing it anyway, so let's make it legal. But I really think that the current law does suppress the use of it. I know I used to say, look, kids, it's illegal. We're not supposed to. I know Jimmy's dad down the street's doing some, but we're going to go watch the fireworks down here at St. Edwards. Or I'm sure they got a bunch of good fireworks shows out in Bellevue. And I do think this helps keep down fires, injuries from fireworks. In a lot of neighborhoods, a lot of people. Will it do everyone? No. And I know when I was at least commander, it's been a while, so I don't know if it still applies, but yeah, there were so many, we didn't answer fireworks calls unless there was something crazy, until after maybe 10:30, 11 o'clock, when it died down a little bit, we could kind of go around and encourage some of the outliers, time to quit now, go to bed. Again, I think the folks that want to do it will go ahead and do it, but we can discourage some with this by not passing this bill. You got animals, you got PTSD folks that I hear from in emails every 4th of July, and I'm sure you all have too. I don't think we need to encourage it.
He was first, but I.
Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I can go after.
I appreciate it. We have fantastic fireworks shows in Bellevue. Every neighborhood is just loaded with every cul-de-sac. It's fantastic. I think Chief Gilder makes an important point in that when he said that.
You just want to make them legal.
What's that?
You just want to make them legal.
That they're triaging calls and they're not responding to a lot of these calls. And I think that when people get upset when they call the police and nobody shows up, no matter what it is, and I think all that does is reduce confidence. If we are saying it's illegal, so call 911, but nobody's actually going to answer. I appreciate that argument.
First, go ahead.
Just to follow up to Councilmember Roberts' question about the sale, could this unintentionally increase illegal sales? Because we're not actually legalizing the sale of fireworks, but we're legalizing the use of fireworks. If anyone, MMPD, fire, anyone, or sponsor, if you've had any discussions about how this could potentially, unintentionally, open the door for other illegal activity that will increase as a result of this law.
I don't find that concerning, but I haven't had any conversations about it.
Ask anybody or not?
Thank you. I guess nobody wants to answer to that, but that's one of the concerns I have as well.
Councilmember.
Are we missing a revenue stream if we're opening up fireworks sales? And I would love to hear stats on contiguous counties. Do their fire and police go through the roof on the 4th of July? Does anyone know if this is something that statistically happens in the contiguous counties where it's legal? Are there any? Yes.
So,
Sorry.
by the state, you have to permit a fireworks stand through the state and through the fire marshal's office. And every one of those stands have to be inspected by either the state or since we're an exempt jurisdiction, someone from our office would have to do it. It would increase increase a workload that we already are under, and I don't want to say understaffed, but the permits that we have are already exuberant for the workload for the worker that we have. So it would definitely be, it would definitely add, because if you do it just for the 4th, then it's going to be 1st of January to make it profitable, to make it make sense, and it's going to add work throughout the time. And then what the state's policy is, if I remember correctly, is for the month of June, and then the month of like the certain amount of time during December that you could sell them for.
So that does change my opinion, hearing that it's going to increase your workload, because I think you all have enough on you. If that's the case, I wouldn't support it, but otherwise a revenue stream is hard to resist.
I don't disagree if you can make it equal out.
That's right. Yeah. Okay.
The other part to what you said is there's a state burn ban within Tennessee from May to October, and just for the reason of everything's dry, and this would compound the type of calls we had, especially doing it on private property. And what is required for pyro is a fallout zone where you wet the ground down for bigger shows. I know we're not talking about bigger shows, but even the councilman just said in his neighborhood they have bigger shows, bigger pyro shows that aren't legal. And in dry times, it increases the even for medical and fire responses that are already needed for, that would be pulled away for something else.
We should probably annex Bellevue, it sounds like.
I'm not just talking about Bellevue, but throughout the county, the whole county.
Yes,
Thank you, Chair. I have a couple of thoughts on this. I think the sponsor may have brought this up last meeting that we discussed this, and I thought it was an excellent point. Right now we know that it's not something that's permitted and people do it anyway. We're just kind of looking the other way, and I think you said with a wink and a nod. I love that expression. We're just kind of looking the other way. this isn't going to encourage, I am of the belief that it's not going to encourage anyone who's not already doing it to do it. I don't pop fireworks on the 4th of July. I have no interest in doing it. I take my kid to the show, and that's it. Because it's legal, I'm not going to all of a sudden go out of county, buy fireworks, bring them back home, and pop them in my neighborhood because I have no interest in doing that. But it will allow people to want to obey the law. It will give them a actual law that they can obey. For people who don't want to obey the law, they are going to continue to not obey the law. But at least if someone calls MMPD, they will be able to be notified that this is legal up until this time. And to the council member's point, we want people to have faith in our MMPD, and we don't want a situation where people are calling and then no one responds, and then that adds to a situation that's already exasperated and adds to a continued negative interaction with the police department. We want people to have faith in the police department, so if they know that no one's going to respond because this is legal, I think that will in fact help those relationships. So, and then my last comment was about that revenue stream. I think that's an excellent idea, and maybe if this is successful, maybe the next council can explore if it makes sense, and maybe that means expanding the department with some of that additional revenue, and hopefully that's something that the next council can explore if it makes sense at that time, if this is successful.
One more question, Chief. To the police department, people I hear fireworks in my neighborhood June 1, starting now all the way past July 4th. This law won't impact that. You all will still get calls for people who are shooting fireworks from June through July 4th. So I just feel like this law the squeeze is not worth the juice, because it's really not going to reduce costs, but there's a lot of potential that it could create other safety and quality of life hazards. And so I guess my question is, how do you all respond to calls that you get on other days outside of July 4th? Because like I said, they're starting now.
So again, I don't want to leave with the misimpression that we don't respond to fireworks calls, period. It's just we're triaging calls for service, which is something we're doing with all calls for service on any given day, right? If you have some, a shooting takes place, that's a top priority call. You have a report, it's a lower priority call. So we're always doing that, prioritizing. So I think, yes, on a day where we don't have, 100 calls related to fireworks in the pending, you're probably more likely to get a response immediately. Like I said, if they're doing something dangerous with fireworks that it poses a greater threat to public safety, then that's getting triaged higher, regardless of whether it's July 4th or June 4th. So I suspect we're still going to get calls. It's just, again, we're still going to engage in the same practice that we have before, which is figuring out which ones we can get to and need to get to first.
Do you have any idea of how many fireworks incidents that you all typically respond to a year, like a percentage or something?
I don't have that data. I don't know if the DEC have provided that. I can.
By tomorrow?
I will try. If we track that, because again, the way we code calls for service, we don't have a fireworks code, so it would be a little. If I can do it, it's going to be a little bit of tweaking. It's not going to be as easy as researching a 10 code.
What about fire? Do you all have a percentage of how many?
Well, I was just going to go back to Council Lady Porterfield's statement about you do have the illegals that's going to shoot them regardless. But I think the concern for us is if this passes, then the ones that have always wanted to do it are like, ooh, so the increase of risk rises, the increase of possible fires. Right now, we know the ground is dry. If we don't get much rain between now and July 3rd, 4th, it ain't gonna take much of a spark to start a brush fire. Especially out in the rural areas where a lot of farm fields are. Roman candles shoot over into there. Now we got a big problem.
The enforcement of illegal use of fireworks falls under the fire department, and back to the same thing. And I know PD gets calls of service for it. We can't keep up with the ones that we get of illegal use now, and so I do agree that what putting a time constraint on it is also going to put it to where before noon and after 10:30, well, this is what the law says. We get that all the time. Well, the law says this, you should do this. And we can't always, we triage them just as well. We can't go out to someone shooting fireworks that by the time we get there, they're gone, or some, the neighbor calls and says, come on, you get out there, they see you pull up, kids run away, whatever. So it's difficult now. And then I think about too, the times that some of the calls we get, NDOT's not involved in this, but the trash and the trash that's in the public right of way. So there's several different things that come up with this that I feel like is problematic.
Thank you. I think Fire makes an excellent point. I mean, they're also being tied up on July 4th with these calls for service or having to triage them at least and not respond, which is not necessary. The people who are shooting illegally, not passing this is not going to make people stop shooting fireworks. They're going to continue to do it just as they are now. If we pass this, maybe some of them want to abide by a law and do them within the guidelines. A lot of other people won't, and it'll be just like it is today.
Any other comments, questions, concerns, questions for guests? Yes, ma'am.
I just have one last really brief comment. I believe the sponsor said in our last meeting when we discussed this, if I understood correctly, that there were some conversations with media about sharing this information out so that people wouldn't know this. And it's just as a point of suggestion, maybe if this passes and this is shared out through media can also give that same suggestion of if you're going to do it with your grass. It's a simple point, but it's something that people may not think of, and that may be something that can help prevent some of the possible concerns. So I don't know if that's helpful or not, but.
All right. So the motion on the table is to move it as amended with 1 and 3. There was not really, I guess, a recommendation for 2. So, are we ready to take a vote? All right, so all in favor as amended with 1, 3? And 1, 2, 3? All right.
4.
1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay, and all against? 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, so, I don't know what that means. It's a recommendation of nothing. We have one more. I believe. I don't think that, was 20 on consent?
No.
No, okay. No, because it's a ordinance, right, my bad. BL 2023-1875, Roten of Syracuse approves an agreement between the Nashville Police Department and Lead Cameron to further youth outreach through activities with the Nashville Police Activities League. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Take a second.
Any discussions, questions? Yes, ma'am.
Can we get a brief overview of what this program does?
Absolutely. The National Police Activities League is a new program within the police department. We've been operating for about 1 year. In that year, we've done a boxing program out at Fighters Boxing Gym in partnership with them. We noticed in that program that some of our kids are from Lead Cameron, and a lot more kids from Lead Cameron want to participate in that program. However, transportation is an issue. This takes away the transportation issue. It allows us to bring the program to the kids at the school, and hopefully will open us up to bring kids from the surrounding neighborhood to that program as well. That school is right across the street from J.C. Napier.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Against? Not voting. You recommend
Your
approval.
nose doesn't look like a boxing.
Anything else before this body? Yes, sir.
Just real quick, I know this went long, so I have Chief Blair with me. I don't know if you all want a brief LPR update or...
Yes.
So we just did real quick, I know you guys got a lot going on. So anyways, we just took a brief numbers of reads from May 7th to the 17th and pulled in 5.6 million tags were read in the 4 quadrants total together. Out of that, there's 4,527 notifications, hey, you need to look at this, right? Then out of that, we looked at what our alerts were, and that's in this report I emailed you guys out back on the 23rd, and it kind of tells what the totals are and what's going on. So we really get it down to about 400 and some, I believe it was 443 individuals that we had to interact with, right? And so sometimes once it hits one LPR, you may not ever see it again, right? So you're trying to hit it again. If you can't find it on a camera, you can't find the next LPR, like in quadrant A, it's very good. Down Gallatin and over Trinity, it hits one, hits another one, you kind of know where it's at. If you're out in Quadrant B, what we learned, if you hit that one, you may not hit the next one. It's hard to find that car, okay? So a lot of this, one of the things people ask me for is a lot of examples. In the report, we put a lot of examples in there. We've arrested 58 adults out of that. 10 of those have been juveniles, 40 have been adults. And then 500 or 5 million people, maybe 8 million people, because of the earlier report, have lived their lives without even being interacted with. It's a precision policing tool. And the other good thing about this we've learned is this gives officers time to think and process more information. When you get behind a stolen car, you usually light it up, and then usually the pursuit starts. With this notification coming out, they still have to find the car. They still have to try to locate it. That gives them time to think about it. And how do we do it? We ask the officers not to do our pursuits. Our pursuits have not increased. Actually, they're waiting and catching the individual away from the car or coming back to the car and taking them into custody safely. So it's been a very beneficial tool.
Thank you for that information. What is the most offense that you are using the LPR for?
So robberies, carjackings. We've had some in homicides, doing the historical search for homicides. We've also learned, too, that the 10-day period is kind of restrictive. We've had some fatal crashes where we had to come back, the person passed, 10 days are gone, we can't find that information. That might have helped on a fatal crash. You know, the state law says 30 days. I understand it's 10 days. I understand the reason for it. But in some of these incidents, you know, we stick very closely to we follow very strictly of the ordinance. But we could expand it at some point in time that would be beneficial in those type of investigations, especially your homicides and fatal crashes.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for that information. Is there any data collected or any information on any misreads from the LPRs?
So how we do it, once we get the notification, we have a dual verification system. 2 individuals, officers, have to verify that that tag works, right? And then they have to check it in NCIC. So it totally eliminates that misread, totally eliminates an interaction of an officer stopping someone and going, oh, realize, hey, this isn't the right car. We are totally eliminated by the process we put in place.
Thank you.
Appreciate you being here. Thank you. Anything else? Just a reminder that next Wednesday, the 14th, is the first of 3 meetings regarding school safety and gun violence. I hope you all can attend. 4 p.m. in the chambers. Thank you very much.
Thank you.